Hello everyone, this is Worry. I said I would do another podfic, so here we are. I decided to do Kangaroo because I know that's a pretty popular one and it did win a T, so I thought that was a good bet. So here we are. There's no video, it's just me talking, so enjoy the pink screen. Summary. When his wife walks out after their son's premature birth, Gold begins to doubt whether tiny Bay will thrive, until neonatal nurse Belle French suggests a new method of caring for him. Kangaroo. 7 days. It had been 7 days since Gold had received that fateful text message from Mila. Baby's at the hospital. Come and get it. Mila had already walked out, ostensibly never to return, when she had turned up on his doorstep one afternoon and said, without any kind of peremptory hello, "I'm pregnant. It's yours. If you want it, come and get it in 9 months. If not, it can stay in the hospital. Either way, I'm not having anything to do with it once it's no longer inhabiting me." 7 days. 7 days since he received that text and flew into a completely mad panic because it was too soon. It was weeks before Mila's due date. He dropped everything and rushed to the hospital to find his child. Mila was long gone, but there, in an incubator, was the smallest, most perfect little baby boy, wearing a tiny blue hat. He was so small that Gold was certain he would fit in one of his hands. 7 days, and he had yet to even hold his son, let alone care for him in any way. He could only stroke his cheek through the handholds in the incubator, reassuring him. "It's all right, Bay. Papa's here. Everything's going to be all right." The past 7 days had been, categorically and without exception, the worst week of Gold's life. It was worse than the week he'd spent in hospital after his accident, worse than the week he'd spent mostly drunk after Mila left. He'd barely gone home all week, spending as much time as he could just sitting beside his son. So small, so weak, and there was nothing that Gold could do. He had pleaded with the senior midwife in charge of Bay's care to be able to hold him, even if only for 5 minutes. "He's not strong enough yet," Sister Blue had said sternly. "He needs to gain more weight. Until then, he stays in the incubator." But Bay wasn't gaining weight, at least not fast enough, and the nurses were worried. He wasn't growing on formula milk, and his sleep was not restful. It was not growing at the rate he should. Gold, in his desperation, was beginning to think that he might never hold his baby. He was dozing lightly in the chair beside the incubator. A kind nurse had drawn the curtain that partitioned him off from the rest of the neonatal ward, and he had been too drained and exhausted to protest when his frazzled and nerve-racked body had finally decided to give in. Through the haze of sleep, he heard people speaking in his vicinity. "This is absolutely ridiculous." The voice was Australian, so it must be Belle. Belle was the one who'd drawn the curtain and brought him a blanket, despite the support sister's stern looks of disapproval. The older woman was of the opinion that only mothers and midwives were qualified to look after babies, and fathers should wait at home. Never mind that Bay's mother wanted nothing to do with her son, and continued to refer to him as it. "Belle, Blue will kill you." The other voice sounded like Ruby. The two nurses were the ones primarily responsible for Bay's care, and they always had a smile and a kind word of reassurance for Gold whenever they came to check on Bay. "And if we keep doing things her way, she'll kill that poor man's child," Belle hissed. Gold jerked awake suddenly and completely. "Sometimes our tried and tested methods don't work. We need to try something else." "Belle, it's been clinically proven. They had massive success with it in London. I'm going over Blue's head. I asked Dr. Whale and he said it was okay to try, and I'll be here in an hour. If he says no then, I bow down to his superior wisdom and we put Bay back in the incubator." There was silence. "Fine, give it a go." There was another long pause, and then Belle came round the curtain, her blue eyes bright and her smile sunny. "Mr. Gold, I've had an idea, and you're welcome to say no, but I think it might help Bay get better quicker." She paused. "Have you ever heard of kangaroo care?" Gold shook his head, and Belle came to sit beside him, perching on the arm of his chair. "It was pioneered in South America," she explained. "In kangaroo care, premature babies are kept close to the mother's chest, skin on skin, like a joey in a kangaroo's pouch. The mother's body heat keeps them warm and snug, so their temperature stays constant. It helps their breathing and heartbeat as well, because they're soothed by the mother's heartbeat, and there's evidence to show babies in kangaroo care are less susceptible to infections. I think it would be a good thing to try with Bay. See if he gets on better in his daddy's arms than in an impersonal incubator. Would you like to try it?" Gold nodded. He would try anything to help Bay grow strong, and if this meant that he would finally be able to hold his son. As strange as it was to be sitting in the neonatal ward with his shirt open, any feelings of unease were completely dispelled when Belle brought Bay over to him, a tiny bundle in her arms swathed in soft green blankets. "Here we are, little man," she crooned, carefully manoeuvring Bay to place him on Gold's chest, skin to skin. "Your papa's got you now." Bay stirred a little from his slumber, then nuzzled into Gold's chest and stilled, his shallow breathing becoming soft and even as his sleep deepened. Gold could only watch him wonder, cradling his tiny son, holding him for the first time since he'd been born. This was the first time that Bay had been cuddled by anyone. "Hello, Bay," he said softly, stroking his son's cheek. "I'm your papa. I'm sorry it took so long to meet you properly." He finally managed to drag his gaze away from his son and looked over at Belle, who was crouched beside the chair, watching them with a fond expression on her face. "Thank you," he managed to say, his voice choking around the words. "Thank you so much." He was holding Bay. At long last, he was holding his son. Even if, when the doctor came round, he was put back into the incubator, it would not matter, because for now, for this however long it was, Gold was holding Bay, holding his child, and it was the most wonderful feeling in the world. Belle smiled. "I think he's more comfortable already," she said, reaching out to touch Bay's little hand. "He's latched onto you like a little limpet." Belle stayed next to them for a few more minutes, making sure that Bay still seemed to be okay outside of the incubator. "Call me if you've got any concerns at all, if his breathing changes, if anything doesn't seem right, if any of the monitors beep, if he stirs, anything." She put the nurse call button on the arm of the chair. "I won't leave the ward, and Dr. Well will be here soon." Gold nodded, and Belle got up to leave father and son in peace. Gold couldn't help but think about the differences between Belle and the sister. Blue was all about rules and procedures and following orders. Belle simply wanted the best for Bay. She truly cared about Bay, and about Gold. It would have been so easy for her to stick to the litany that Blue had repeated so often, but she had put herself on the line and let him hold Bay. More than that, let him take care of Bay. He was the one keeping Bay warm now. Bay continued to sleep soundly, his breathing regular, and Gold lost all sense of time, lost in his thoughts as he watched Bay sleep. He couldn't understand how Mila could give this up, walk out on this perfect little infant she had helped to create. When he had got married, Gold couldn't wait to start a family, and when he and Mila had finally parted for good after so many months of fractious arguments and not quite make-up sex, he thought that his chance was behind him. Bay was truly a miracle. People in the town had remarked slyly behind his back that it was doubtful that Bay was even his, and Gold knew that the chance was there, but it didn't matter. He was here holding Bay, he was Bay's father, whether they shared DNA or not. "Mr. Gold?" He looked up. Dr. Well was standing there with Belle smiling brightly and Blue looking grim, arms folded. The doctor looked positive, and Gold took that as a good sign. "Well, you seem to be getting on just fine," he said, looking at the monitors that Bay was hooked up to, wires taped to his little feet beneath the blanket. Bay's pulse and blood oxygenation are normal, his breathing is steady, and he's warm enough. I think you've had the right idea, Miss French, but we'll limit Bay's time outside of the incubator to a couple of hours at first, and then gradually increase." Blue gave a huff of protest and left them. Belle just smiled. "Thank you, Dr. Well. Mr. Gold, I need to feed Bay now. He can stay in your arms as long as I can get to his feeding tube." The doctor made some notes and spoke to Belle to tell her what time Bay had to go back into the incubator, and then left them. Gold just watched the little nurse beside him. He had not realised how petite she was until he had seen her next to the doctor and the sister. She was crouched next to the chair again, and Gold could smell her shampoo. "Apples," he thought, "and maybe lime." "Thank you," he said again. I was beginning to wonder if I would ever hold him." Belle glanced up at him with a sunny smile for a moment before returning her attention to the formula milk and Bay's feeding tube. "I know," she said softly. "You mumble in your sleep sometimes when you nod off here." Gold continued to watch her. She really was a remarkable woman. Within another week, Bay's condition had improved greatly, and he had begun sleeping in an open crib when he was not in Gold's arms. He could not hold Bay for as much or for as long as he would have liked, for the simple reason that he could not move once he was holding Bay. He couldn't carry him around, since he needed both hands to hold him securely, and that did not leave one free for his cane. But he would sit with him for hours at a time, and the time never seemed to drag. Indeed, he had fallen asleep himself on more than one occasion. The only problem was that Bay was still gaining weight too slowly. He wasn't completely rejecting formula milk, but it was as if it wasn't enough. He was in a half-doze when he heard Belle's voice rousing him gently. "It's dinner time," Belle said quietly. She was holding a tiny bottle. It looked more like it was meant for a doll than a human child. Bay's feeding tube had come out earlier that day. "Would you like to feed him? I think this might be what he needs, and even Blue's approved this one." "I thought the formulas weren't working," Gold said. Belle shook her head. "They weren't. This isn't formula, this is breast milk. We have another baby in the ward next door who's got some digestive problems, and she can't have her mum's milk at the moment. When the mother heard about Bay, she offered her milk for him." Gold moved Bay to a better position to feed him, and Belle handed him the little bottle. Bay latched on and suckled greedily. "Well, it's taken to that far quicker than when I bottle-fed him formula earlier," Belle observed. She tended to hover around him and Bay, perhaps lingering a little longer than she did with her other patients, and Gold had almost remarked on it. "It's all right," Belle had said, as if she was sensing the question before it was asked. "I'm not hanging around because I'm worried you'll drop him. It's just, I've never nursed a baby in kangaroo care before, and it's just beautiful to watch you two bonding." "I think it's time we went back in the crib now," Belle said presently. Gold had been so lost in his thoughts that he hadn't noticed that she'd gone away and come back again, and he wondered how many hours had passed. "I think you ought to go and get some rest yourself, Mr. Gold." Gold nodded. As accustomed as he was to sleeping in the chair, his own bed seemed like a good idea at that moment in time. Bay was doing well. He was constantly improving, however slowly. Although Gold still feared a dreadful phone call every time he left the hospital, the fear was less intense now. As he got up to leave, he looked at Belle cooing over Bay in the crib. If he didn't know better, he would have said that there was a smile on his son's face. The breast milk turned out to be just what Bay needed, and within another couple of days he finally began to grow at a healthier rate. Gold had just finished feeding him one afternoon when an unknown voice called to him from around the partition. "Excuse me, I can't really knock on the curtain, but I'd like to say hello." Gold raised one eyebrow. "You can come round," he said to the person on the other side of the partition. A young woman with short dark hair came out, followed by a man carrying a baby in a car seat. The little one, presumably a girl since she was dressed head to toe in pink, was sleeping like a log. "My name's Mary Margaret," the woman said. "I was on the ward next door. We're going home now, but I just wanted to see how Bay was getting on." Gold looked down at Bay, snoozing happily against his chest. "He's doing fine, thank you. He's grown more in 3 days than in the past 7. Suddenly the woman's appearance made complete sense. "You're the lady who offered her milk for him, aren't you?" Mary Margaret nodded. "Thank you." Gold was touched by the kindness of the stranger, who had never met him or Bay, but who had heard that they were in trouble and offered her help. Between them, she and Belle may well have saved Bay's life. Mary Margaret shrugged. "Well, Emma didn't need it, and I had plenty to spare, so it was the least I could do. I hope it helped." Gold nodded. "More than you can know." Mary Margaret smiled. "Well, so long, Mr. Gold. Bay, maybe our paths will cross again." "I hope they do," Gold replied. 4 days later, Belle announced, grinning from ear to ear, that Bay was able to come home at last, pending Dr. Wells' discharge note. It was the happiest day of Gold's life, without a doubt, but there was something in the back of his mind that made him slightly sad. When he and Bay left the hospital for what would hopefully be a long time to come, he would really miss seeing Belle all the time. She always had time for him, always had a kind word or a friendly smile, and on the occasions when she had more time to stop and chat, they had actually managed to have a couple of enlightening conversations on topics that were not centred around Bay. "Thank you so much, Nurse French," he said. "I was only doing my job, Mr. Gold, and I said before, you can call me Belle." She sighed. "I think I'm going to miss you both, you know. I wouldn't want you to stay in the hospital for a moment longer than necessary, but I got so used to seeing you around, and seeing Bay get better simply from being next to you. Sometimes it can be draining on neonatal, with all these babies who were so ill and so young and so small, but seeing Bay always gave me hope." "We'll miss you too, Belle." There was a little pause then. "Maybe," Belle began, "could I maybe come and see how he's doing in a few weeks? I mean, if you don't want me poking my nose in, then that's fine." She tailed off, and Gold smiled. "You would be very welcome, Belle."